Yeah.
The last question, we wanted to find out from a male perspective how you perceive imposter syndrome, like in your everyday life or throughout your career.
If anyone else wants to go first, no worries. I can go.
I don't mind touching on it a little bit. Um, I'll start by saying one, just piggybacking off of what you were saying, Lucy. It brought me to a quote by Mustafa Shakur. He's actually I was first introduced to him through his poetry, but he's an actor as well. He played Bushmaster on Luke Cage. He played in Emancipation with Will Smith recently, but he got a quote that says, "The trouble is we're told who we are long before we ever have the wherewithal to answer that question unassisted." And I think that's a testament to what you were just saying with what a lot of us deal with. Oftentimes, we try to fit into narratives that was created for us before ever having the opportunity to kind of make that way on our own. To my own experience, I'm Colonel Mark Hunt Jr. Obviously, a Colonel Mark Hunt Sr. preceded me, and a lot of who I am when around family and things like that was kind of already fashioned based off of the precedent that my dad set. And those things aren't bad. I don't want to sound like I'm coming from a negative connotation, but just speaking to the point that you were saying about fitting into these ideals that may not necessarily be how we truly feel, but how we feel we have to, whether it's carrying a certain last name or what have you. So when you think of the mentality that governs that school of thought, it translates 100% into the professional realm because we've already been introduced to it in some shape, form, or fashion. So when we get into the professional aspect of things, obviously it's almost a knee-jerk reaction because it's a space that's familiar to us because I had to live up to the expectations of Colonel Mark Hunt Sr. before ever, blazing my own trail. So when I get into this professional realm, how easy is it for me to live up to an expectation or an idea that was set before me before I ever decided how I wanted to move? And plus, it's also the other side of that, which is a more uglier side of that. It's easier for people to digest their projection of us than it is to accept who we really are. So when you look, I'll use my journey in the professional, even before I got on the corporate side of the automotive sales industry. I was in the day-to-day dealership operation, and it's just a good old boy network. It's a good old boy system. It's a lot of people that's just passed through the pipeline without having any, real talent, for lack of a better expression. And then you start to look at yourself like, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. And it's like, no, you just it's almost the nature of the beast. I forgot who said it's no measure of good health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. A lot of us are in many ways becoming well adjusted to stuff that is seemingly abnormal in the name of success or in the name of a road that we decided that we were going to travel. So I think, I mean, obviously it's a multi-layered, multifaceted conversation, but from my perspective, I could see how one kind of translates into the other when you look at your personal journey versus when you start to go into that professional journey. So
Wow. First of all, profound quotes. I can tell you're a brother that's well read. Oh my gosh. Um, you said something about how can you measure your health in a sick society. That's very interesting to me. And then also like we don't really get a chance to define who we are before we're told who we are. And I think that's very deep and profound to me too. I'm going to say something real quick, and I think Victoria might want to jump in, but like growing up, second generation Nigerian American household, I was torn between two cultures, American and Nigerian. And in the Nigerian household, it's very patriarchal, which is the same in American society, but I never felt like I had a voice in the household. I remember my father and his friends talking about politics. And me as a child, I was very well read. I enjoyed listening to the news. I enjoyed history. And I remember wanting to share a point of thought with them. And it was just basically a level of disrespect towards me. Like, you don't know what you're talking about, like, get out of here, don't speak when, you know, when men are speaking or this. And it at the time, being that young, it really affected me, because I didn't feel like I could express my ideas or my thoughts. And when I address the idea of imposter syndrome today, it takes me back to those moments when I was a kid, and when was I shunned or reprimanded for something that should have been good, you know what I mean? But that may have scarred me, you know what I mean? And getting over it, you know what I mean? Because I have a lot to express, and I think it would be beneficial. Victoria, do you want to jump in? Definitely want to hear your point of view too.
Oh, sure. I actually can come on camera. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I think everything that everyone's saying totally resonates. I think to the point of being a female, I think a lot of what goes on in my head turns into emotion, right? Because we're just more emotionally connected beings. So the overthinking sets in, the the whether I'm going to be good enough. And I think that also goes hand in hand with everything Melissa said about just it being cultural, Jazz. It being cultural. I feel as though, having grown up in a first generation household, everything was about the struggle, right? And so there were certain things right now should be good enough. You should feel like you've made it, like you've accomplished something. If you're a homeowner, if you have a good paying job, if you have whatever, like that should be good enough. Like, be happy. This is what we brought you to this country for. This is what we came here for. And it's like, no, I get to want more, and I get to also strive for more, and I get to not be in that box of what you consider to be successful, which is usually to be married, to have children by this age, et cetera, which I have not done. And so, like, it's hard to, to basically reconcile what we consider as successful beings now in this millennial versus what our parents consider successful, right? And so those people whose adoration and support and encouragement we always yearn to receive, at least on my end, I always want them to be happy. And in the same token, I want to be able to take care of them. I thought the same thing, probably, as you said, like by this age, I would have done so. And it's always striving to do that. And I think to a certain extent, the whole taking a breath and like relieving yourself from stress, it's hard to do that too, because you feel like you have so much to do. You feel like the cup runneth over with tasks and goals and accomplishments to still hit. And so the time that you actually do need to rest in order to go forward, you start questioning, like, is that something that I can do? Is that something that I can afford myself? Because our parents didn't have the luxury. So do I necessarily have the luxury? Have I afforded that to myself? And it kind of gets to that crash and burn era where I'm just like, I want to keep going, but I'm also super tired. And so I think everything else that everyone else said, like, totally resonates. I think that's just my 2 cents about it. I think being a Latina in tech, as it is to be any type of person of color in tech, you're always going to feel some type of imposter syndrome, just for the mere fact that there's not enough of us. There's not enough of our faces that you see, especially not in leadership. So I'm constantly questioning myself, like, wait, is that person correct? Am I correct? Like, am I giving sound judgment to this? And I am, but I think in certain circumstances, you may feel like you don't, because representation does matter. And so for me, I've only even gone to places where I think that representation is even there, minimally, but it's there. Because it's important for me to feel that. But I think that's where all my imposter syndrome comes from.
Yeah, definitely. You hit some of those, like, implicit, like, underneath the subconscious or the consciousness types of things too, do I know what I'm talking about? It's like, yeah, girl, you made it this far. I'm pretty sure you know what you're talking about. You did all that research, you did all this work, and you're still questioning yourself, and that's dangerous. That's lethal. I want to hear from everybody, and then we can just move on to how to overcome them. And we've actually touched on some of those things already, but we'll make it a bit more formal. Tim, I know you wanted to jump in a bit earlier. Just want to hear your perspective.
Yeah, so the question was, how do we actually deal with imposter syndrome, like in our everyday life, or what have
Yeah,
you?
you can start with that, and then just also like how has it shown up in your life? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it showed up a few times. I would say probably in graduate school, maybe. Sometimes when you're right, you are alone a lot of times, especially in these upper level. I mean, I was in engineering school, so it was like these upper level, high level, super level engineering classes, and you look around, you're the only brother around, so you're like, and then you're like, damn, should I even be in this class? Should I even be in this degree? Like, because it seems like everyone else is doing well, and I'm over here struggling, right? But it's really, I mean, what I did was I just kind of, I kind of just looked at the long term goal. To be honest, I mean, I know for a fact if I suck at something, I'm gonna be really good at something else. So if I suck at programming, I'm really good at hacking. So even if people like, even if people are smoking me in this particular course, I know that uh, even if it's in another course, another semester, there's this other stuff I know that I'm going to be good at, and that's really how I seen it the most. Because I mean, imposter syndrome shows up with. I mean, it's really another form of depression. Really, I mean, it's like you feel like you're not good enough, but I mean, a lot of it's just in your head. So I mean, once you realize it's in your head, you kind of get over it. That's my take.
I'm not gonna lie, you talk about depression. I just did my like annual checkups and everything like that. And I wanted to be really honest with my physician, and I told him I feel like I've had bouts of depression. And I think Melissa mentioned this, or maybe Gosleon before she hopped off, but these thoughts in your head, like am I doing the right thing? Like am I progressing in life? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. I mean, you you know that you're kind of on that right path when other people start telling you're on it.
right.
So you're just like, it starts with, people start asking you questions. Like, I mean, I can always take it back to just grad school, but I remember starting like in the beginning of my degree program. Like that first semester, I was good. And then we got to that second semester, it was like they started getting like serious, right?
Mhm.
And by the time the third semester is going, I'm already knee deep in imposter syndrome. So um getting over that was just like, oh God, get over this hump, get over this hump, get over this hump. So I don't know. That's kind of how I see it. I mean, you can't really let it like dictate everything because it can really drive you like off of your goal, your end goal. If you just start saying, "Oh, I'm not good enough. This person is killing it over here." So I understand that, and we do live in a you know chaotic times, but
Mhm.
honestly, you still just gotta you kind of gotta focus on those goals. I think that's really the small goals. You focus on the small goals, you can get those big goals later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else want to share before we jump into some of the solutions behind it? Um,
I'll say a quick piece if I could.
Please.
Um, well, first I would like to thank all the ladies for sharing because it really gives a very incredible lens for me as a man. And everyone said elements that I have experienced in my own way. And at this stage of my journey, the way I really see how imposter syndrome shows up for me is when I am thinking and operating from a lens that this is how the story is supposed to go or ought to go, rather than really just experiencing the journey for what it is. And the more I find myself just being present and allowing things to be what they're going to be, the more it's enabled me to not have that weight of what comes with imposter syndrome, I would say. For me, it's mostly shown up from overly preparing. I am a strategist, I'm a analytical guy, I'm a logistics guy, and I like that. And I know for myself, I have got to have space to fully be that. But at the point of which I go overboard with it, I've been able to reflect and identify that's partially imposter syndrome. And I've had enough experiences on my journey where I've realized something that makes me special is I always figure the thing out. Now, it might not go how I thought it was going to go, but I'm at a place where I've had enough scenarios and experiences where it's like, Adonis, you always figure it out and it always turns out great. So give yourself that space to allow that part of you to flourish. And you take that part and add it to that planning part. And if you put those two things together, you'll probably be operating at one of your highest levels. But essentially for me, my snapshot of how it shows up is typically when I'm too concerned with how the story is going to go and I get too far away from being present, and it's led me to overly trying to plan and control everything. And I'll speak for myself, that's not how life is supposed to work for me. So
I really love that. Like, one of the things you touched on is we don't really live in the present. We're kind of living in the future and kind of like pulling ourselves back between both realities. And then sometimes we're in the past too, you know what I mean? Sometimes our past anchors us down as well. But really appreciate you sharing that. Christine, definitely want to hear your perspective before we go to the next segment. Christine, you good? Okay. Feel free to hop in whenever you like. Y'all, we have about 5 minutes left, so I just kind of want to...
Sorry.
Oh, no,
I
you're
thought the
good.
mic wasn't working. Sorry
You're
about
fine,
that. Okay, so I would have to say, sorry, I'm just getting ready for a baby shower. I completely agree with a lot of what was said in this discussion. I think Adonis, something resonated with me with you was how you said this should look how it's supposed to look. And so I think that is something that I feel like is coming up a lot. I'm in that space of like, yeah, it's supposed to look like this. So this is how it's supposed to be. But I'm trying to get out of that frame of mind and say, nope, this is not what it's supposed to be. I want it to be something else. So I'm trying to remove myself from that state of mind and to shifting it and saying, no, this is not what I want. This is not how it's supposed to lay out. So how am I going to get there to ultimately be what I would hope it to be in the end? But I even think about Melissa and Victoria when they started talking about, you know, you're as a Latina in my generation, second generation home, it's always been, I've been the one that has done the most in my family. I've been the one who has separated from the idea of like, this is where I need to stay. And so this is why I took the leap and I came to LA, because if I didn't do it now, then I would live in that regret of why didn't you? Why couldn't you? My family is always going to be there. And I think I held on to that for a really long time of like not being able to separate myself from my family and just being there every step of the way and being for them and not being there for myself. And so like, I think that is showing up a lot more for me as well. But everything that everyone else has said, like definitely has resonated.
Yeah, girl. Thank you for sharing. You hit some notes, man. Like that first generation, second generation. I mean, and everyone experiences African American, Black, or whatever, but there's definitely pressure, like, because when I think about my values, my core values, family is more than like, it's probably number one, to be completely honest. Like, I'm very attached to my family, but sometimes that can be a hindrance as well to where you really want to go, because they come with their own set of beliefs and traditions and values as well. But yeah, really great conversation. I'm really inspired by this. Y'all are really showing me that it's important to have these conversations, even in a room full of strangers, because we're all going through these things. It's kind of like this, what do they call it? How we're all interconnected by these like invisible like wires, you know what I mean? And it's like, I feel like these are the topics within those wires that are not really uplifted in conversations in the public. It's always like hustle hard, get the bag, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, but I cry at night because society is tough. Life is hard. Like, I really gotta hustle for every single thing. You know what I mean? Like, I want soft life. Like, I'm tired. I think Victoria said this, like, I'm tired. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like we also need to uncover and talk about that other side that is not so pretty, not so attractive, but is what really gets us to that next step. So I just want to, just out of respect and time, I try to set this for an hour, but just kind of talk about the steps that can be taken to overcome all the different things we talked about. One of the first ones that I have here is recognize the symptoms. And if we're on this call, then we definitely know what the symptom is, and how to address it. Some of those symptoms are self-doubt, perfectionism, and procrastination. These are signs of imposter syndrome. The second thing I have here is make sure we're challenging our negative thoughts. So one of the main causes of imposter syndrome is negative self-talk. Questioning your abilities, like, do I know what I'm talking about? Like, you know what I mean? Rid those thoughts from your mind. Challenge them by asking yourself, are they based on facts or are they just assumptions? And replace that negative talk with positive talk. 3, seek support, talking to others about your feelings and gain perspective and validation. So that's exactly what this is about, right? Bringing a group of like-minded, incredible people together to get that perspective and get that validation. Like, yeah, I go through that too. And then of course, outside of these groups, seek out mentorship or seek out any additional support you may need. Any questions on those? Just a couple more. How y'all feeling? Right? Yeah.
I was gonna say, man, like, know that you're at where you're at for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you it's no accident that you're in your positions, man. It's someone probably believes in you more than you believe in yourself.
That's a good one. And with that, like, practice self-compassion, treat yourself with the kindness and understanding that you would offer to anyone else, that you would offer to a family member, that you would offer to your child. You know what I mean? Like, life is lifing, and just make sure you treat yourself softly. And then of course, set realistic goals. So having realistic and achievable goals can help build confidence and a sense of accomplishment. I started doing that. Like, I used to just be like, 2023 is going to be my year. I'm gonna go hard, but it's like, what does that really mean? You know what I mean? So I really had to kind of take a step back, and I started breaking it down by quarter. And I have this little notes thing where I look at each day. You know what I mean? What am I doing every day? So that's been really helpful for me too, I will say, because I be all over the place and then I get nothing done. So this has really helped me kind of be more executable. And the second to last, learn from failure. Failure is a part of life and it can be a valuable learning experience. I've always had deeper learnings through mistakes. So that's a part of life as well. And then lastly, make sure we celebrate our accomplishments. We're all incredible people. I know that if we are in this network, then it's a strong network of great leaders, passionate people who have already delivered great impact in their communities. So we're just going to go forward and, make it bigger. But yeah, that's how to overcome imposter syndrome. That's today's session. Like, what's up? How y'all feeling? Did this help at all? Just kind of talking it through with someone.
Can I
Yeah.
really quickly
Yeah.
on those talking about those things that help? I would like to share something that really helped me, and that was redefining basically, myself in a lot of ways. And mostly, what do I want? And I'm looking in the chat, and Victoria says, "Soft life, please." And it's like super funny, but I think that is so much power there because, if that's something that we want, I had to start to, Lucy, you mentioned I'm very intentional, but I just really wanted to make sure that the things that I'm practicing and my actions support what I really want. And there was a time where I tried to force myself to want things because everyone else seemed to want it, but I just didn't really want those things. And when I started to concentrate on what I want, my path, really has shifted towards bringing those things into my experience. And it really was a quest of clarity is what I call it. I removed myself from a lot of situations, a lot of social types of things. I missed a lot, but on the other side of that, things became incredibly clear. And it's something I try to just share because it's tremendously impacted my life experience. But, just being honest about what is it that I do want. I might not necessarily want to be the CEO of that company, or I might not necessarily want to be the most popular. I don't want to be famous. I want to be able to grocery shop without anyone trying to run up to me. So, just in that sense of thinking is something I wanted to share, and it's something that doesn't cost money, so.
Hey, one thing I wanted to share as well, I think that the part that resonated with me the most is the perfectionism side of things. I think for me, what I've been learning, and I spoke with Lucy about this before, the biggest, principle that I've been grasping and wrapping my head around is what it truly means to surrender. Much of who I am, or I should say who I've learned to be, is someone that try to control every aspect of everything, right? Just because I'm so intentional and I see how it's mapped out and I see how I want to get there and where I want to get to. But one thing there's always going to be uncontrolled variables. There are always going to be unaccounted for variables. And so I've really been now more so positioning myself with the flow. I think in the control aspect of things, you don't even realize that you kind of start working against the current. Because if everything about the circumstances is say do A, B, C, but you want to do X, Y, Z, then you create. There's a level of tension that I've created for myself since I've been really learning surrender. I've realized to what y'all was saying, being present, understanding all I can control is the controllables. What I can't control, I worry not about. Understanding the power of the moment, not being too caught up in tomorrow, not being too invested in yesterday, but understanding that the most opportune time is right now. And in that right now, a lot of those fears and anxieties and apprehensions cannot exist because those things we create based off of what? Circumstances that we've been through in the past or what we're looking forward to in tomorrow, but never right now. So that's what I know for the last year and a half. That's really what it's been for me. Just doing my best to align myself with the flow, understanding who I am, to what Adonis said, what I want, and how I can get to those things. Jim Carrey says something that was profound in his commencement address back in 2013. And he said, as far as I can see it, it's just about telling the universe what you want and then not worrying about how it comes to pass, just doing the work. So in a lot of ways, that's been able to help me not focus on trying to make everything so perfect, not make everything so ideal, and just really align myself with the flow. And then, relieve myself of a lot of the self-inflicted stress and concern that I create in that mind frame. So I wanted to share that.
That was a good one. Yeah, thank you. Snaps to that. Anyone else have some tips and tricks for how they overcome? Ooh, that's awesome, y'all. Just really grateful, really thankful to see all of you all today, to have you all on the call. My idea is to do these types of conversations every 2 weeks. This is a commitment I made to myself, to Adonis's point, like what do you want? Like, where do you want to be? And I think for me, bringing people together and having real conversations is something that I'm passionate about, because it's hard going through these things alone. And sometimes it's like, who do I call? I'm like, all right, I'm just going to call everybody. Let's just have an event about it, so that's that. But I do want to just share with you guys what we have coming up in the next 2 weeks, February 4th. Again, I target women, but as y'all know, like, this is really for everybody. I actually love the male perspectives too. But at the top of the year, we just did a how to calculate your monthly expenses and income, which is very important. Personal finance is something I'm passionate about, and I'm very passionate about bringing prosperity to minority communities. So I'm always going to talk about money through the brand So You Love Money. Today was about imposter syndrome. We have a mentorship program, and this is just one of the topics that we share with the collegiate women, but I think it's important to share with everybody. And then again, in 2 weeks, is probably going to be one of my favorite events, why Black and brown women should learn blockchain technology. Timothy, I would love for you to be on this call. But so Tim and I, we met through our MIT program, which was a data science, analytics, and machine learning 12-week program that we took at MIT. So that's how I met this incredible guy. I'm going to try to get some of our other friends on this call, but blockchain technology is really taking over everything our future is going to be. And it's time that we kind of like look it square in its eye and just really embrace it for what it is. So that's something I just kind of want to touch on, just on a very fundamental foundational level. So yeah, it'll be around. If you guys are interested in any of this information, hit me up, hit Melissa up, or go to soyoulovemoney.com or soyoulovelucy.com, and I have all the events on there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Appreciate y'all. Hit me up. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks, Lucy. I have a quick question. Are we able, I don't know if you're connecting us all, or if we're able to just drop our handles if we want to stay connected. I'll do that. Oh, sweet. Thanks, Adonis. Yeah.
Please drop your vids, man. I would love to. I just put that. Y'all can reach me via email as well. Good point, Melissa. I need to figure out how to do that next time. But yeah, and if you guys pop your emails in there, I can actually send you all the recordings as well, and then everyone's handles and stuff, because we have some pretty cool people in here. All right, bet. So y'all enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thank you so much for spending a little bit with me, and I'll catch y'all at the next two weeks.
Thanks, Lucy.
Thanks, y'all.